The division commonly finds young workers under the age of 16 working outside of federally allowed hours, and workers under 18 assigned to hazardous occupations.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
So let's talk about child labor in the South, and this is something that is, has been sort of a running thread through the show for the last several months. That child labor has just been rampant, not only through the South, but I mean through the country as well. We saw that in Iowa, they just passed a bill to allow 14-year-olds to work in coal mines. I mean, really rancid kind of stuff, it's just amazing that this kind of stuff is happening today. But the Department of Labor put out some stuff regarding the South in particular last week that we wanted to go over, and they said from 2020 to 2022, so just 2 years, the Southern Division of the Department of Labor assessed Southeastern employers more than $2.8 million in penalties. With violations of child labor law up 69% since 2018, and millions of minor-aged workers joining the U.S. workforce each year. Now, that's not millions of minor-aged workers working illegally. Some of those are in seasonal summer jobs in restaurant, retail, and amusement industries, and that is and has always been legal. So, when you hear people trying to justify child labor and loosening child labor laws by saying, oh, I had a summer job and it didn't hurt me, okay, that's true, and they can still do that. 16-year-olds can still work at the ice cream shop with proper parental consent. These laws, the loosening of these restrictions, go beyond that. The loosening of these restrictions are allowing children to work later on school nights, to allow children to work more than 8 hours in a day over the summer, to allow, and in Arkansas, one of the laws was allowed children to work without a parental consent form. Which is really, frankly, all that is they ought to have named that one, that bill, the Child Trafficking Support Act, the Support of Child Trafficking Act, because that's all that does, right? If you allow children to work without a parental consent, without any form or anything, that is just, which is not to say that the form totally inhibits child trafficking. Of course it doesn't, but it makes it that much easier to fraudulently employ minor children that have been trafficked for the purpose of labor. Very, very wicked and rancid stuff being pushed by business interests and politicians across the country. But back to this report. Millions of minor-aged workers are joining the U.S. workforce each year, many in seasonal summer jobs in restaurant, retail, and amusement industries, which is legal and fine and always has been. The U.S. Department of Labor is actively working to educate Southeastern employers about their legal obligations and make sure that young employees are kept safe at work and paid fully, which is, something that's really wild that they have to put out there. But they talk about this webinar that they're putting on for employers about, hey, here's how you don't abuse children at work. This is, here's a crazy concept. Maybe you shouldn't abuse children that work for you. I don't want to hear any excuses from business owners that said that they weren't aware. Absolutely. There's free webinars.
Personal responsibility says and dictates that you should at least be taking the webinars from the Department of Labor.
Yeah, the free webinars.
How to pay your employees what you promised them. How to not break laws.
How to not break laws.
How to not hurt children.
Yeah.
Very important concepts that are, critical to the success of your business.
Yeah, very, but also, to be fair to the business owners, very complex, I'm sure, to not break the law. But, so if you're a business owner out there and you are interested in taking advantage of minor-aged labor over the summer, the Department of Labor has a webinar series that is free that you can take to show you how to not break the law. So there's, something to consider there. Look it up on your own time. So from fiscal year 2020 to 2022, the division assessed employers more than $2.8 million in penalties and conducted more than 500 child labor investigations. This is, again, just across the South, affecting nearly 2,900 minors. These are minors that are working illegally, under illegal circumstances, whether they're working, past the time. There's I think it's 7 or 8 o'clock. Children can't work past 7 or 8 o'clock if they have school the next day, and they can't work more than 8 hours in one day over the summer.
And just vary, the laws do vary from state to state, and depending on age, right? There's different regulations for 14 and 15-year-olds as opposed to 16-year-olds and older.
Yeah,
right.
That's what the Department of Labor webinar is for business owners.
Right.
So definitely take that. But these are 2,900 children working illegally just in the South. In Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Child labor violations were most commonly found in the restaurant, retail, construction, and amusement industries, but recent violations in the Southeast, auto manufacturing, and meat processing industries are alarming. Quoting from Wage and Hour Division Regional Administrator Juan Coria in Atlanta, federal child labor laws permit minors between 14 and 17 years of age to enter the workforce so long as the job complies with federal, state, and local child labor laws. In many of our investigations, the Wage and Hour Division found Southeast employers illegally allowing minors to work longer or more frequent hours. We also discovered minors under 18 were assigned to perform hazardous occupations by employers who failed to understand their legal obligation to protect young workers from these potentially dangerous tasks. In its investigations, the division commonly finds young workers under the age of 16 working outside of federally allowed hours, and workers under 18 assigned to prohibited or hazardous occupations, and employers failing to keep accurate records for youth workers. Coria added that unfortunately, we sometimes learned that an employer violated the law only after a child suffers an injury. And that's one of the consequences of the right-wing assault on the government, on the actions of government. One of the consequences is that the Department of Labor does not have adequate staffing to routinely inspect and routinely give out these trainings to ensure that employers are following the law and ensure that workers are safe. One of the consequences is that sometimes the Department of Labor only learns about violations of child labor law after an injury. Coria added that failing to comply with the laws that protect minors' safety is irresponsible and illegal. Part of the division's focus on enforcement of child labor regulations is intended to prevent recent incidents involving injuries suffered by young workers, including the life-changing injuries suffered by an underage worker in Florida illegally employed to work on a roof, and hot oil burns sustained by a McDonald's worker illegally assigned to use a fryer in Tennessee. The U.S. Department of Labor is determined to prevent child labor violations and to stop employers from jeopardizing the safety of young workers or harming their ability to keep up with their schooling, Coria said. We encourage employers, young workers, and their parents and others to contact us with questions about federal child labor laws. The division offers many compliance resources, including a fact sheet on best practices for employing youth and its Youth Rules website for information on providing youth a positive and safe work experience. So I will give you a lifeline, business owners, if you're interested in employing children. They say, for more information about other laws enforced by the division or to report a violation, contact the toll-free helpline, 866-4-US-WAGE. That is 866-487-9243. Calls can be answered confidentially in over 200 languages. So that's a very important resource if you're a boss wanting to make sure that you're following the law, but also if you're a worker who has suspicions that your rights are being violated.
Right. Or if you see something, if you're aware of something, I am around schools a good bit, and just from what I overhear from high schoolers, I feel pretty confident that there are child labor law violations happening in North Alabama. It seems pretty likely.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
just for folks to know, you can search Alabama child labor laws, and you can find a one sheet poster there. It's not hard to find this information, if you are an employer, or if you are a worker, and again, you're not sure if your rights are being violated, or your child's rights are being violated. I mean, just so you know, 16, 17, 18-year-olds should not be working after 10 p.m. or before 5 a.m. on a night preceding a school day. Should not be happening. Otherwise, the rules are pretty flexible. They don't have an hour restriction when school's not in session.
Oh, they don't here in Alabama.
They do not. If they're 16, 17, 18, no breaks are required. So, that's something that's worth noting. 14 and 15-year-olds do have more restrictions. No more than 3 hours on any school day. No more than 8 hours on a non-school day. No more than 6 days per week. No more than 18 hours per week. Not before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m. on any day of the week. Not during school hours, of course. And that's when school is in session. Those rules are in place. But when school's not in session, no more than 8 hours a day or 6 days a week. No more than 40 hours per week. Not before 7 a.m. or after 9 p.m. each day. So for 14 and 15-year-olds, a documented 30-minute break is required if they are employed for more than 5 hours continuously. And that's a little bit about the child labor laws in Alabama.
And David in the
should
chat,
follow them.
Yeah, David in the chat. Yeah, you should follow the child labor laws. David in the chat asks, why is it businesses stealing wages or endangering child workers is a civil crime, and yet stealing from business is criminal?
Absolutely.
Fines for them and jail for us. And that's absolutely an important thing to remember when you think about employers. I read from this press release, literally actually harming children in life-impacting, life-changing ways. Right. An underage worker being employed illegally to work on a roof. Injuries suffered by this person. Hot oil burns sustained by a McDonald's worker illegally assigned to use a fryer. These are not, these are and if I did this to my, if I had a kid and I burned them with hot oil, or I was responsible for them and I allowed them to fall off the top of a roof, I would be sent to jail. I would have my kid taken from me.
DHR would be sniffing around your place. It would be a whole fiasco. And it's a real double standard there. And we see the double standard in terms of wage theft versus retail theft.
Right.
Our Alabama legislators and all their wisdom are actually trying to make it make even more punishments for shoplifting. Because of alleged shoplifting rings that they're concerned about, and they want to be able to add even more charges to people and incarcerate more people over shoplifting, right? But this kind of criminal activity by bosses and employers, which is damaging children, which is stealing from people, it's just a civil penalty.
Yeah,
it's a real double standard, and it's an injustice in our criminal justice system.
Yeah, and real freak stuff. I mean, just real freak stuff. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.